Welcome to our series on the history of Los Alamitos. I'm your host, Myrt Perisho. Now we're going to talk about incorporation on this program, and there's going to be two names that come up. No matter what you're talking about, these two names come up, and we have those two fellows with us tonight. Their name is Jim Bell and Chuck Long. Welcome, gentlemen. I'm so glad you came on the show.
Thank you.
Certainly a pleasure to be here this evening.
Well, good. You had to come a ways, didn't you?
Yes, I'm living in Corona right now, so it takes about an hour's drive to get here.
Oh, and you really have been in Arizona for a while, so you're now back in Corona?
Yes, we'll be here until next May.
And you just had to come a few blocks.
That's all.
You still live in Los Alamitos?
Yes.
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 Well, Jim Bell was the first mayor of Los Alamitos, and you were the first vice mayor, right, Chuck?
Mm-hmm.
And before the city incorporated, let's talk about what you did with the Chamber of Commerce, because that really leads into the incorporation. You want to tell us about your life with the Chamber?
Well, I think you are correct on that, because the Chamber was the one that first initiated the incorporation of the city.
Uh-huh.
And the Chamber was the only active body out here at that time, and when I say out here, in the area of Los Alamitos, which was unincorporated at the time. And I got active in that, and we could see the needs for the city, you know, from time for the community rather, from time to time, and so we got busy. The Chamber of Commerce did, and initially installed some signals in town on the streets, and we also eventually formed the sewer district, which is called the Los Alamitos County Water District.
Still the same?
Yes,
same?
It's the same thing. And we also originated the street lighting. We had a very small one to start with, but it grew. And then we seen other needs, you know, and we decided that it would be better if we incorporate the area into a city.
Now, you were president of the Chamber for 7 years.
That's right. I was president for 7 years.
And that was really our city council, wasn't it? You
It
made
was.
good decisions.
At that time, yes, it was.
And then you went into this venture of becoming a city, and that took a long time. Tell us about that.
Well, it's quite interesting, I'll tell you, because I think it was either 4 or 5 times we tried to incorporate the city. And that, of course, as I say, came through the Chamber of Commerce. We organized a committee to work on it. And, of course, the committee was quite busy. And that was in 1955. And they worked on an area. They first decided they would incorporate with about 3 other cities, which was Stanton and Garden Grove and Westminster and Cypress. And they met with those people for several meetings, and of course it eventually was decided that this was not a good idea, and so they abandoned that particular
Everyone wanted to keep their own identity?
They all
is that
wanted to
why
keep their own identity, is correct. And we was trying our best to figure out a way to do that, and yet incorporate, you know, with all. But anyway, it didn't work out, and when we dropped that for a while, why, Garden Grove filed for incorporation, and then shortly after they incorporated, Westminster filed for incorporation, and it just worked on its way on down, see?
Well, Chuck, why did you have the need to incorporate? What was it that pushed you?
Well, there was really two reasons. One of them, of course, was the service. We being the farthest neighborhood to the west.
Right, we're right on the edge of the county.
We're edge of the county, and it would take a long, long time for the police department or any other services. Building departments, we had to drive all the way to the county seat, which would be Santa Ana. And so that was probably one of the main, but then also with quite a few of us, we were history-minded people, and we wanted to see the name of Los Alamitos retained as an identity of its own.
It had such a history, that name.
Yes.
So then what was the next try? Then we went on to what, the third try?
Well, we eliminated some of the area and tried to include then just Stanton, Cypress, and Los Alamitos, and call it Tri-Cities. And we worked on this for the next year, I guess it was, and we eventually come to a dead end on that also. this would not work so well for reasons of identities mostly. And of course, at that time we had a lot of dairies out here, and some of them felt like that if they incorporated, they would probably be pushed on further, you know, and it wasn't ready to go.
So then what was the final try that you made it?
Well, we finally reduced the area again down. We eliminated quite a bit of the area down to about, I guess, 4 square miles altogether. And began to work on that to get our petition signed and get the land valuation all signed up so that it would qualify in the county, you see. So this is what we eventually wound up with, was the 4 square mile area.
And it is 4 square miles, isn't it, Los Alamitos?
It is
I didn't
approximately,
really
we call
know
it
that.
the 4 square miles.
That it was 4 square miles.
Yeah.
And well, when it came in, then you had to, when you finally got incorporated, then you had to have an election for your city council. And
That's
have your
correct.
first city council, your
Yes.
first election. Who were the people in that first city council, Chuck?
Well, there was 5, as you know. One, we had 2 Browns, A.C. Brown and Bill Brown. And then we also had a fellow by the name of Allen, Frank Allen, almost forgot his name, and then Jim and myself. And the election, the way they decided on the number of years that each one of us was to serve, the 2 highest voters would get a 4-year term, the other 3 would have 2-year terms. Then from there on out, it would be staggered, then elections every 2 years, and then that way it
And
would
it's
be
still
kind of a
that way?
carryover. Yes, it is.
Still that way? The 2 highest get a 4-year
Well,
term?
no,
No.
originally to
Oh,
start, I
originally,
think,
just to
yes,
stagger it.
That was
this
to
way
start it.
established the way to where it could be staggered every
I
2
see.
years. So you would have certain members on the council still there,
You
and
wouldn't
not
have it all
a complete
new,
change.
which could happen.
That's right.
Well, when you first started, you had told me that you had some really good guidance, that you really owe a lot to these people. Tell us a little about who they were.
Yes, I think that the 5 of us that were on the board were really pretty green. We had never ran a city before. So fortunate enough, we had before, during the years of the Chamber of Commerce, and then at that time, a lot of help from one of the supervisors over this district, which was Willis Warner. So he knew that I think, were green, and he introduced us to various people.
Now,
We
this Willis Warner, his name has come up a lot in this series, and he's so well respected. Everyone just thinks he was wonderful.
Yes.
Too bad we didn't name something after him in town, wasn't it? Well, there
Yes.
is a street named Warner, but that's not, would that be him?
That's him.
That's him?
That's
Oh, well,
after
good,
Warner.
good, because he
Over around
must have been
Huntington
a
Beach, because he lived
terrific
in
guy.
Huntington Beach.
Okay, now he guided
He served
you.
many years on the Board of Supervisors for our district. And so he knew that we would need help in getting started. So he introduced us to a city attorney that was that was a city attorney of the Fountain Valley and also Villa Park. His name was Cal Schmidt, who is now a judge. And so he could help us from the legal aspect. Then we needed a city manager. So he introduced us to the manager of Fountain Valley, and he kind of moonlighted and helped us to get started in that way. There was also a planner by the name of Moore who worked with the county. So he came in and helped us in the area of planning and stayed with us for some time. And then we had a help, Jim, you're going to have to help me. Let's see, that covers, well, the engineers, we hired an outside firm there as a consultant, which helped get us started.
And this all just got you greenhorns going
Right.
in the right direction, which was wonderful, wasn't it?
That's right.
It certainly was, yes.
But it's coming full circle, because you're doing this now for another town, aren't you? Tell us about what you're doing at the present time.
Well, since going to Corona, I was first appointed and since then elected to a water board out there. So it seems like the whole thing is starting all over again, which will be responsible for this Timskill Valley for sewerage and water. And so it's exciting in a way to start all over again to what was so
Oh,
dear to my heart
yes.
here in Los Alamitos.
And you're the only one with the real experience on this new board.
Well, I'm the only one that has had previous water board experience. However, the various members are very competent people that are on there now, and so.
But I bet they're happy to have him, don't you?
I'm sure they are.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
And the water board, how long were you on the water board?
8 years.
And what about you, Jim?
No, wait, I beg your pardon. It was well, how long was it? Between 6 and 8 years, I think, on the water board. 8 years. 8 years on the water board.
I was on it 21 years.
21 years. Does that beat Bill Poe's record?
No, I think he's getting ahead of me now.
Is he?
See, he quit for a while.
Uh-huh.
And,
But he's
then
been
he came
there
back.
a long time.
Yeah.
What was the population of the area when it became a city?
4,235, if I remember correctly.
I
when it
think
was incorporated.
Mr. Long's about right.
4,235.
Mm-hmm.
And
There
you
was-
had to get
There
what,
was 990 some odd registered voters,
what percentage of those did you have to incorporate?
over 50%.
Well, simple
So-
majority. In
Simple
other words,
majority?
one
Simple,
over
yeah.
the
We,
noes.
the actual vote, when we voted for incorporation, was 451 for and 229 against.
What a memory. Did you just look this up before you came? Or you, oh, okay.
I did. Yeah, that's 30 years ago, you know.
I know. You both have such good recall. I'm so glad that we got the two of you on the show.
Yeah.
And we had to wait a while for Chuck to come back from Arizona to do this, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah. Well, now this Hannah that you talked about, he was assemblyman at the time?
Yes. Now,
And
where
now-
he came in to help us so much was the fact that when we incorporated, it was in the month of March, you see. And so between March and the next end of the next fiscal year, it is a long time, and funds would not be available.
Uh-huh.
So he entered a special bill in Sacramento to make it possible for us to draw certain funds, subventions that come to cities ahead of time, and that gave us the money to go ahead and proceed with the city.
And he went on to become a congressman?
He was a congressman,
Uh-huh.
He's not a congressman at this time, but he did go on and serve in our federal government.
And it's wonderful that these people went on. I mean, there's so many from the city council have gone on to things also, haven't they? Judges?
Yes, that's true.
Judge Cox and who else?
We had an attorney for the
Cal
city
Schmidt,
Cal Schmidt.
that went on to be a judge. He's still judge at
Newport Beach.
Newport Beach.
An attorney for Los Alamitos? What's
Yes.
his name?
Calvin
Calvin Schmidt.
Oh, that's
that
Cal
same-
Schmidt.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're going to stop. We're halfway into our half hour now. We're going to stop because we have some wonderful pictures of then and now. Things that we have pictures of what they look like in Los Alamitos then and what they look like. There might be some then and now pictures of the two of you. Okay?
Thank you.
Take it away. Welcome back. I'm sitting here with two gentlemen who between them have 58 years of public service. Jim Bell has 24 years, 24,
24.
and Chuck Long has 34 years of public service in Los Alamitos. That's
Yes.
great. Have you ever thought of it? Is 58 years between you before?
I really had.
A lot of years.
Let's start, Chuck, with you. You've got a great story about the incorporation when you were short on signatures. Tell us what happened there.
Well, it really isn't probably common knowledge, but there was a very exciting episode took place at the time of incorporation. This was getting ready for the vote. In the friend that we had of Willis Warner, we had already gone out and got the signatures adequate enough to form a city. But also under that same ruling, you had to have at least a certain percentage of the valuation of the city of Los Alamitos. And I got a telephone call from Willis Warner, which said that we were short $18,000 assessed valuation, which is really a very token amount. It could be just maybe a couple of houses, but that we were short. So we could not go ahead. We would have been we were going to be turned down in order to go ahead with the incorporation
And this was
signature.
the night before you were going to appear?
This was the late afternoon after we were told the next day would be the day that they would probably turn us down. But he did say that if we had a substantial change, and that was the term, substantial change in the boundaries, we could then again file at that time. If not, if we went for the same boundaries, we would have had to have waited for another year. Well, we knew that Garden Grove was trying to come into the area and slice it up, and Buena Park and the other cities around. So we felt that, okay, we had no other choice than to make that substantial change. So there was a meeting in Bill Brown's house. Dale Croson was there, and Bill Brown and myself. And I can remember taking some masking tape and chopping off Rossmore, which I hated to do. But at that time, there really wasn't that much support in incorporating as a city from that area. So we felt that there was enough support in the old town to make it successful. So anyway, that was our dilemma. So the plan was, the next day, Bill Brown was to go to the engineering department and had to draw up new legal description of the new boundary. He also went before the Board of Supervisors and told them that the signatures were being acquired and also the engineering, so that we could file them that day. So Bill took care of his part, and I had the job of going out and getting 50 signatures. And that was very difficult because people then had gone to work the next day, you see, the day of the meeting. So I struggled, and the time was getting close to 4 o'clock when it was time that the meeting was going to be over. So I hopped in my car with the signatures I had, which was not 50, it was around 30. So I dashed over there, met Bill Brown on the street corner, just like you'd see in some TV show anyway, I guess. So we went in, and the Board of Supervisors, Willis Warner, who was the president of the board at that time, asked, "Do you have the new paperwork to refile for a corporation?" And we said yes. And so immediately they made the motion and all to give us the opportunity to try one more time. We went in and we filed the papers with the city clerk. I told the lady at the city clerk that I would have the additional 20 signatures in the morning. She said, "Fine, no problem."
And that just slid through.
That night, we were able to get them together. And one of the remarkable things, there was a fellow in the audience that was representing other cities in the area. And I've always felt that if we didn't get that opportunity for that new try, that there would have been a filing of one of the other cities.
Right there.
But we stopped it at that time.
And so here we are.
So here we are.
Los Alamitos.
Soap.
That must have been some ride to the courthouse with just the 30 signatures.
It was
and you bluffed your way through. You suppose
Them days you could go pretty fast. See, there wasn't all the traffic that we
wasn't
had.
55 mile either, huh?
That's right.
Well, tell us about the beginning of the police department in Los Alamitos. Jim, what happened
Well,
there?
of course, after the city was incorporated, you know, we needed certain departments for the city to take care of. And so we decided we'd form the police department. And of course, this was quite an expensive department, you know, and we had to do some finagling to figure out how to do this. And we finally came up with the idea of hiring a chief of police, which was Donald French. And he, in turn, worked with the city manager and the council, and after we hired him, and formed a nucleus of this police department, which, as the money came in, as Mr. Long has stated, it taken a while for monies to come into the city, you know, after it was incorporated. So he, after we appointed him as the chief of police for the city, why he began to hire others, and it turned out to be a real good police department. Mm-hmm.
Now this Donald French, I understand they're getting ready to honor him right now.
Yes, it'd be in
special.
November. I think it's November 7th, I guess. That's Pearl Harbor Day, I believe. But I think that's when it's going to be. It's somewhere,
A special
somewhere in
dinner
early
honoring
November.
him for his service as a...
For his service to the city.
Oh. And now, is this something just Los Alamitos is doing, or is this where he's worked all different places?
Yeah, it's just what he's done in Los Alamitos.
Oh, I see. So the dinner will be something local.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to go, aren't you?
Yes, the
Yeah.
dinner will be at Cassie Castillo's, the Mexican restaurant.
Nice, nice. Well, Chuck, you were telling me about the early days of corporation. Everyone in Orange County was trying to incorporate about the same time, and how great the people were. Tell me a little bit about how you met them and that type, what the people were like.
Well, there was an organization called Orange County League of California Cities, and all of the cities would go to these meetings, and we worked pretty close together. I think all the cities did, to help grow together, because so many of them, as you mentioned, were incorporated at the same time. So we helped each other, and we worked on various boards together. And even the Orange County Sanitation District, there was representatives from each city there to take care of the sewer problems for the whole county. And so it's great, and the Ys participated by going to these meetings also. And we must always pay tribute to our wives, because they had to give up a lot.
Oh, you must have
so many
spent
meetings that we had to
long
attend all the
hours
time.
with something like this. I know they do today, and they're organized.
Well, if it wasn't for the wives, I guess we wouldn't have done what we've done, because they were the backbone for both of us, I think. I can speak for myself anyway, and I think it was
Yeah,
Mr. Long
I
also.
should say so. Yeah.
They were big helps.
They were.
Yes.
Anything you want to tell me about Jan Long in San Francisco?
Well,
Jan, we won't do it. So there were a lot of meetings where you met all the people around from the towns in Orange County, and you probably still have some of those friendships today from around. And
That's
some of the
true.
names
That's
that
right.
I'm sure are still well known in the county.
and of course,
Because you
it's-
were the movers and shakers, that's for sure.
Of course, it's been quite a while, and some of them have deceased. That's the only problem with some of the friends now.
Do you run into any of your old
Oh
friends
yes,
like that?
I do once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, but I know you two have had a real good time talking since we started working on setting this program up.
Oh, we certainly have. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love the
course,
stories that I can't tell,
Of course,
though.
Mr. Long and I.
I think the one story we should tell about Jan, since it was brought up, it really
Yeah, I
wasn't
think
that
it-
bad.
You think we should go ahead
Yeah,
with
I
that
think
story?
he
All right.
We were in
I don't
one
think
of the,
Jan mad at me. See?
one of the swanky hotels up there. For some reason or another, it looked like the banister was so nice and slick, and nobody else was around, so she decided, well, she just used that for a slide. So she's been given a hard time ever since that for sliding down the banister in a fancy hotel.
I hear you've never let her forget it.
That's true.
Good for Jan.
We don't.
Well, in all the years that you've put in serving this community, there's got to be something outstanding that you're really proud of, that you've accomplished, that you've looked back at. Tell me, Chuck, what you really feel good about.
I think the self-satisfaction of being able to drive through town after all these years and seeing the culmination of the master plan that was developed back in the early days when Jim and I first started on the council, that all these things, most of them have come to pass to this point. The parks, the industrial areas reserved for industrial, and the residential. And I think that this is, to me, is what the rewarding thing is to be able to just drive through town and see how it's changed.
So really where the industry is where you wanted it in the beginning, and everything. It hasn't really been changed.
Really hasn't changed very much from the original basic
Looks like
layout
a
of
good
the
plan
city.
to me. I think we're doing great. So, and what
We're
about
doing
you?
real well.
What about you? What are you most proud of?
Well, I guess I could be a little naive, you know. One thing is because I was the first mayor, the council thought enough to elect me first mayor.
Gotta be
This
proud
was
of that.
quite an honor, see,
Sure was.
and I appreciated that. Now, the one other thing that was accomplished that I was real proud of too, of course, Mr. Long was involved in this, and that's when we swapped land with the military Naval Air Station with an individual on the east of town, and solved a problem and built what is called suburbia today. Which,
So you really did some real strong mediating,
right.
and on a high plane too. I mean, that was quite a
And
project.
of course, as Mr. Long says, self-satisfaction. You got to see that. You got to appreciate that.
Sure, and you always live with it.
Right.
Yeah. When did you come? What year did you come to Los Alamitos?
I came as a youth in 1940. My father bought a grocery store here in town, and then we later built the Los Alamitos Trailer Park, which later they call Long's Trailer Park, but we really knew it mostly as the Los Alamitos Trailer Park. We built it during the war because there was no place for the military, the Navy people, to live. A lot of them, there was just no apartments, and so Dad saw this need, and so he was able to buy property right here in town.
Tell about how you bought that property. I thought that was kind of a nice story.
Well, we need to really thank Bill Poe Sr. and his associate, a man by the name of Mr. Mann, that we were afraid, Dad was afraid, I was too young to get really involved with this, but I can remember it well, that Dad was afraid that if he was to try to buy several lots this way, that if somebody found it out, they would block us in some way. So thanks to Mr. Poe, Mr. Poe Sr., he was able to put all these different individual lots together to where we ended up with 15 lots right there off.
Oh, is that what it was? 15
off
lots
of,
where the trailer park was?
Between, off the corner of Cattell and Los Alamitos Boulevard. And our old home house that was on the boulevard, which was tore down not many years ago, in fact, within the last 6-7 years ago, used to be the post office in town.
That's what I understood. Yeah.
And that-
Well, excuse me,
That's
Jim,
right.
when did you come to town?
I came into Los Alamitos in 1947.
What was your reason
And,
for coming here?
The reason I came here, I was employed at the Naval Air Station, and it was so convenient to be that close to it. So, also I bought my first home.
Here in
at
Los
that
Alamitos?
time, yes.
Where? On what street?
On Farquhar Street, and which is now a parking lot for a medical center over there on Farquhar Street.
Oh, is that close to where Shirley Hubert's house was?
Well,
Farquhar?
it's about a block and a half from
And you
that.
raised your 2 children?
I raised the 2 children. I used to, where I live now, they used to raise beans. My children used to go over there, they called it gleaning, I believe, and pick up the beans after the harvest, and peddle them to the people in town.
Good for them. Good for them. Well, I want to thank both of you so much for coming and spending the time that we have spent preparing for the show and being on the show, and I really appreciate it a lot. Would you come back and carry us through another show and bring us a little up to date on the incorporation of Los Alamitos?
We
happy
certainly
to.
will, yes.
Okay, then we'll see you on our next week in the series. Until then, tune in next week. You're going to hear more from these 2 fellas, and they know it all. This is Myrt Perisho saying so long.